My name is Margaret Cole, and I am 84 years old. For most of my life I believed that love and loyalty ran deep in families. That no matter what, blood would always protect blood. But that night, lying at the bottom of my own staircase, with my hips screaming and my breath trapped in my chest, I learned how wrong I was. I had seen the smirk on my daughter-in-law's face, the cold glint in her eyes as she stood at the top of the stairs. I heard the muffled laughter of my son just before she whispered, "It's done." The fall had knocked the wind out of me. My frail bones rattled against the steps as I hit the ground. The world spun, and for a second I thought that was it, this was how they would win. My house, my savings, my will. Everything I had built with my late husband's hands would fall into their greedy laps. They thought the old woman was finally broken. But as their footsteps faded, leaving me alone in the darkness, a strange calm washed over me. The pain was unbearable, but my mind was sharper than ever. They wanted me gone, but they had no idea I was still breathing. Slowly, inch by inch, I clawed at the wooden floor and dragged myself to the phone. Every move felt like fire ripping through my bones, but I kept going. When my trembling fingers finally reached the receiver, I dialed with what little strength I had left. And just as I heard the faint ringing on the other end, the door creaked open. Shadows stretched across the walls, and I realized I wasn't alone anymore. Someone was coming back. My heart pounded in my chest. Was it to check if I was dead or to finish the job? Before I could speak, the figure stepped into the light, and my world turned upside down again. Who was standing there? Friend or foe? You'll find out soon. Please, if you're hooked by what you've just heard, stay with me for this journey. Like, comment, and subscribe because what's coming next will shake you to the core. The figure in the doorway froze when they saw me sprawled on the floor. My vision was blurred, but I could make out the silhouette of my grandson, Liam. He stood there wide-eyed, his phone clutched in his hand like he'd been about to text someone. For a moment we stared at each other in silence, me fighting to stay conscious and him, caught between fear and hesitation. "Grandma," he stammered, taking a step forward. His voice cracked, trembling with something I couldn't read. Guilt, maybe? Or was it fear that his parents' plan hadn't worked? I gasped for air, my voice barely a whisper. "Call an ambulance." Liam hesitated. He looked back toward the stairs, as if someone was watching from the shadows, then back at me. His face twisted, torn between two choices. Finally, he dropped to his knees, his fingers shaking as he dialed 911. While waiting for the sirens, I caught fragments of his panicked whispers. I didn't know they'd really do it. I thought it was just talk. My heart sank. So he knew. My own flesh and blood had heard the plot against me and kept silent. The paramedics arrived, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they loaded me onto the stretcher. I locked eyes with Liam one last time before they wheeled me out. There was something in his expression, a mix of shame and silent pleading. He wanted forgiveness, but I wasn't ready to give it. Not yet. At the hospital, every bone in my body screamed, but my mind stayed sharp. The doctors buzzed around me, their voices blending into a haze. Fractured hip, possible concussion. Lucky she's alive. Lucky. That word stuck with me. It wasn't luck, it was survival. That night, as I lay under the harsh fluorescent lights, memories flooded back. I thought about my late husband, Robert, the man who built this house with his bare hands. We had raised our son, Thomas, there with love and discipline. When Robert passed, I held on to the house because it was all I had left of him. I worked hard, saved every penny, and built a small fortune, one I had intended to pass down to my family. But over the years I watched Thomas change. His wife, Evelyn, had a way of twisting his thoughts, feeding his greed. She made me feel like a burden, a nuisance in my own home. Still, I never imagined they would go this far. The next morning, I opened my eyes to see Evelyn standing at the foot of my hospital bed. Her lips were curled into a fake smile, her voice dripping with sweetness. "Oh, Margaret, what a terrible accident. You really should be more careful on those stairs at your age." "Accident?" The word burned in my chest. I wanted to scream, to tell the nurses what she had done. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed proof and I needed a plan. So I played along. I smiled weakly and nodded, pretending to be the frail old woman she thought I was. Inside, though, I was already plotting my next move. That afternoon Liam came to see me. He sat by my bed, fidgeting with his hands. "Grandma," he whispered, "I didn't push you. Swear. I heard Mom and Dad talking. They said, if you were gone everything would be easier. I didn't know they'd actually." He stopped, tears filling his eyes. I reached out and touched his hand. "Liam," I said softly, "sometimes the worst evil comes from the people closest to us. But you still have a chance to do what's right." His lips trembled. "What do you want me to do?" I leaned closer, my voice barely audible. "Tell me everything you know." And he did. Every detail, every whispered conversation he'd overheard. They had been planning this for months, adjusting my medication, loosening the handrails, waiting for the perfect moment. My stomach turned with every word, but my resolve hardened. That night, as the hospital ward fell silent, I stared at the ceiling and made myself a promise. They wanted me dead. They wanted my will. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The next morning I called my lawyer. I asked him to visit me in the hospital, and when he arrived, I handed him a sealed envelope I had hidden for years. Inside were documents, deeds, bank statements, and a new version of my will I had quietly updated after noticing Evelyn's growing hostility. He looked at me, puzzled. "Mrs. Cole, do you want to execute this now?" I smiled faintly. "Not yet. Let them believe they've won first. Then, when they least expect it, we'll take everything back." As my lawyer left, I felt a surge of strength I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't just going to survive, I was going to fight. Later that evening, Evelyn returned, her fake smile intact. She leaned close and whispered, "You won't be coming home, Margaret. We're making other arrangements." I looked her dead in the eye, my voice calm but icy. "Be careful, Evelyn. The stairs aren't the only thing that can make someone fall." Her smile faltered for the first time. But let her wonder what I meant. That night, Liam snuck into my room again. "Grandma," he whispered, "they're planning something else. They don't think the hospital will keep you safe. Mom said she'd finish what she started." I felt my heart pound, but I didn't show fear. Instead, I reached for Liam's hand. "Then we'll be ready for her." Because what Evelyn didn't know was that I had already set my trap. And just as the clock struck midnight, the door to my hospital room creaked open again. Slowly, silently. A shadow slipped inside. I closed my eyes and stayed still, my heart racing as I heard the footsteps draw closer. The smell of her perfume gave her away. Evelyn was here, and she wasn't here to say goodnight. But this time I wasn't helpless. What happened in that hospital room? Did Evelyn succeed, or did I turn the tables? You'll find out in the next chapter. If this story has you gripping your seat, don't stop now. Like, comment, and subscribe because what's coming next will leave you breathless. The air was heavy with the scent of Evelyn's perfume as she crept closer. My eyes remained half shut, my breathing slow and shallow, making her believe I was asleep, or worse, sedated beyond awareness. I felt her presence loom over me, the faint rustle of her clothes as she leaned in. A glint of metal caught the moonlight streaming through the blinds. She had something in her hand. My fingers twitched slightly under the blanket, inching toward the nurse call button I had hidden under my palm. One press, and the silent alarm would bring help. But I waited. I wanted to hear her speak. I wanted to hear the venom spill from her mouth, so there would be no denying what she had come to do. "You should have just stayed down," she hissed softly, so close I could feel her breath on my cheek. "You've lived long enough, Margaret. It's time to let go. For all our sakes." My heart pounded, but I remained still. I could almost feel the cold edge of whatever she held in her hand. Maybe a syringe, maybe something sharper. Then, as she raised her arm, I slammed my hand down on the call button and screamed with every ounce of strength in my frail body. The room erupted with chaos. The lights flickered on, and nurses rushed in. Evelyn froze, caught like a deer in headlights, the object, a hypodermic needle, dangling from her fingers. Her eyes widened with horror as the staff swarmed. "What are you doing?" a nurse shouted, grabbing her wrist. Evelyn stammered, her face contorting into a mask of innocence. I was just, she needed her meds. I was helping." But the nurse knew better. "You're not authorized to handle any medication." "Security!" They dragged her out of the room as she screamed. "This isn't over, Margaret. You'll regret this." I sat up slowly, my body trembling from adrenaline. The doctors checked me, ensuring I was safe, but my mind was already 2 steps ahead. Evelyn had crossed a line tonight, and she would pay for it. The next morning, Thomas stormed into the hospital room, his face flushed with anger. "Mother, what did you tell them?" "Evelyn is saying you framed her." I stared at him coldly. "You really think I pushed that button for fun? She tried to kill me, Thomas. And you let this happen." He clenched his fists, his voice rising. "You're losing your mind. You've always hated her." "I never hated her," I said calmly. "I pitied her. But now I see she's nothing but poison. And you've let her turn you into something I don't recognize." For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. He stormed out, muttering under his breath. After he left, Liam entered, his face pale. "Grandma, they're furious. Dad says you're lying, and Mom's telling everyone you're unstable." I reached for his hand. "Liam, listen to me. The truth always comes out. But until then, we have to be smart. Will you help me?" He nodded, tears brimming in his eyes. "I'll do whatever you need." That day I called my lawyer again. I told him everything that happened, and he assured me we now had enough to start legal proceedings. "We'll need witnesses," he said. "I have one," I replied, glancing at Liam. Over the next week, I played the role of the helpless grandmother, letting Evelyn and Thomas believe they still held power. But behind the scenes, I was gathering evidence. Hospital security footage, recorded conversations, and Liam's testimony. When I was discharged, I didn't go back to my house. Instead, I stayed in a safe location arranged by my lawyer. Evelyn tried to visit, tried to sweet-talk her way back into my good graces, but every time I refused to see her. Meanwhile, my lawyer filed for a restraining order against Evelyn. That move sent shockwaves through the family, and the gossip started spreading. Neighbors whispered, friends asked questions. Evelyn hated the attention. One evening, I received a call from a private investigator I had hired. His voice was steady. "Mrs. Cole, you were right to suspect more. I found evidence your daughter-in-law has been siphoning money from your accounts for months. I also have recordings of her discussing finishing the job." My hands trembled as I hung up the phone. The web was unraveling, and soon, the whole world would see Evelyn for what she truly was. But as the days passed, things became more dangerous. My car tires were slashed. Strange cars parked outside my temporary home at night. And one evening, when I returned from a doctor's appointment, I found the door ajar. Inside, the place had been ransacked. Papers scattered, drawers pulled out. Someone was desperate. That night, Liam called me, his voice shaking. "Grandma, Mom and Dad are planning something big. They said they're done waiting. They're meeting with someone tomorrow to make sure you don't live to testify." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. They were escalating and fast. But what they didn't know was that I had already set a trap. I had given my lawyer everything, copies of documents, recordings, and statements, and told him, "If anything happens to me, release it all." The next morning I stood by the window, watching the sunrise. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready. And when I opened the door to leave, I came face to face with Thomas. His expression was dark, his posture tense. Behind him, Evelyn stood with a cruel smile. "You're coming with us, Mother," Thomas said coldly. I tightened my grip on my cane. Over my dead body. Evelyn's smile widened. That can be arranged. What did they have planned for me? Would this be the final confrontation? Or was this where I turned the tables once and for all? You'll find out in the next chapter. Stay tuned because the storm is only beginning. Like, comment, and subscribe because you won't believe what happens next. Thomas's grip on my arm was tight enough to bruise, and Evelyn's smug expression made my blood boil. They thought they had me cornered, but they didn't know how far I had prepared. "Where are you taking me?" I asked, forcing my voice to remain calm. "To talk," Thomas said, his tone sharp. "You've caused enough trouble with your lies, Mother. This ends today." I let them lead me outside, all the while pressing the emergency alert button on the inside of my pocket, a device my lawyer had given me. Sent my location straight to him and the police. Evelyn didn't notice. She was too busy reveling in what she thought was her victory. They shoved me into the back seat of their car. Liam stood by the porch, frozen, his face pale. Our eyes met for a brief second, and I gave him the smallest nod. He understood this wasn't the end. The car ride was silent except for the hum of the engine. I stared out the window, my mind racing. We drove for miles until the houses disappeared, replaced by dense woods. My stomach churned with dread, but I kept my composure. Finally, they stopped near an abandoned cabin, one that Robert had once used for hunting trips decades ago. It had been empty for years. I realized why they brought me here. No witnesses. Thomas opened the door roughly, yanking me out. "You could have just stayed quiet, Mother. We could have avoided all this." I stared at him, my voice steady. "Robert would be ashamed of you. You were his pride, and now look at you, reduced to a puppet for a greedy woman." His jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. Evelyn, on the other hand, laughed coldly. "Robert is dead, Margaret, and soon you will be too. Then everything you've been clinging to will be ours." They dragged me inside the cabin. Dust hung in the air, and the wooden floor creaked beneath our feet. Evelyn pulled out a vial of something from her purse, liquid poison perhaps, and placed it on the table. "This is quick," she said with a chilling smile. "Less messy than the stairs." I took a deep breath, keeping my fear hidden. "You really think this will work out for you? You really believe you'll walk away from this?" Evelyn leaned closer. "Who's going to stop us?" "You. You can barely walk." Just then, the faint sound of sirens pierced the distance. Evelyn's eyes widened. "What is that?" I allowed myself a smile. "That, Evelyn, is the sound of justice." Thomas's face turned pale. "What did you do?" "I'm not as helpless as you think," I replied, my voice strong. "The police are on their way. And when they get here, they'll find everything they need, because I've been recording this entire conversation." Evelyn spun around, searching the room, but it was too late. The hidden recorder in my coat pocket had already captured every word. The sirens grew louder, and the distant crunch of tires on gravel signaled their arrival. Thomas backed away, running his hands through his hair in panic. Evelyn tried to grab the vial and destroy it, but I stepped forward, blocking her path with my cane. The door burst open, and officers stormed in, weapons drawn. "Step away from her," one shouted. Thomas and Evelyn froze. Within seconds they were handcuffed, their protests falling on deaf ears. As they were dragged out, Evelyn screamed, "You'll pay for this, Margaret. This isn't over." I watched them being shoved into the back of a police car, their power crumbling to nothing. For the first time in months I felt safe. But deep down I knew Evelyn wasn't bluffing. She was cunning, and prison might not hold her forever. The police escorted me back to my safe location, and my lawyer met me there. He assured me that the evidence was overwhelming. They wouldn't get away with this. But he also warned me, "Be careful, Mrs. Cole. Desperate people can still do desperate things." That night, Liam sat beside me, holding my hand. "I'm so sorry, Grandma. I should have done more." I squeezed his hand gently. "You did enough, Liam. You saved me." But just as I began to relax, the phone rang. My lawyer answered, his expression darkening. He handed the phone to me, his voice low. "It's the police. You need to hear this." I pressed the phone to my ear, and the officer's voice crackled through. "Mrs. Cole, we had an incident during transport. Evelyn, she escaped." My blood ran cold. Where did Evelyn go? What was she planning next? Was I truly safe, or was the nightmare only beginning? Find out in the next chapter. This story is just heating up. Stay with me, because the twists you're about to hear will leave you speechless. Like, comment, and subscribe, you won't want to miss what happens next. The officer's words echoed in my ears like a death sentence. Evelyn escaped. My grip on the phone tightened, and I could barely whisper, "How?" He sighed heavily. "During the transfer, there was a staged accident. The transport van was rammed by another vehicle. Thomas is still in custody, but Evelyn, she vanished into the woods. We believe she had outside help." I closed my eyes, my chest tightening. Of course she had help. Evelyn was cunning, resourceful, and ruthless. She wouldn't stop until she got what she wanted. Me gone and my fortune in her hands. When I hung up, Liam looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. "Grandma, what are we going to do?" I forced myself to stay calm. "We're going to be smart. We're going to be stronger than her. And we're going to end this, on my terms." That night I barely slept. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow outside the window made my heart race. I knew she was out there, watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. The next morning I met with my lawyer and the police. "We need to increase security," the officer said. "Until Evelyn is caught, you are in danger." But I shook my head. Hiding won't stop her. She's like a snake, silent until she strikes. If we want to end this, we have to lure her out. My lawyer frowned. "That's risky, Mrs. Cole. I've lived long enough to know that some battles can't be won by hiding," I said. "I'll be the bait, but I won't be defenseless." The police agreed to station undercover officers near my house, setting up hidden cameras and surveillance. I returned home for the first time since the attack, my heart pounding as I stepped inside. The house smelled of dust and memories, but it was still mine. As I walked through the halls, I touched the banister where I had fallen, the place where Evelyn had pushed me. Rage bubbled inside me, but so did determination. That night, I sat by the window with a cup of tea, my cane resting by my side. The house was quiet, too quiet. Around midnight, a faint rustling outside caught my attention. I peered into the darkness, my heart pounding. A figure moved among the trees, barely visible in the moonlight. My breath caught in my throat. Was it her? Suddenly my phone buzzed. It was Liam. "Grandma, lock the doors. I think Mom is near. I saw her outside earlier." Before I could respond, the power went out. The house was plunged into darkness. I gripped my cane tightly and whispered to myself, "Not tonight, Evelyn. Not tonight." A shadow slipped past the window. Then I heard the unmistakable creak of the back door opening. The officers outside hadn't noticed. She was too quiet, too clever. I stayed still, pretending to be unaware, while my hand slowly reached under the table where a panic button was hidden. Footsteps crept closer, slow and deliberate. Evelyn's voice floated through the darkness, chilling me to the bone. "You think you can outsmart me, Margaret? You're old, weak. You should have stayed dead." I pressed the button, triggering a silent alarm that alerted the police. But Evelyn didn't know. She stepped into the room, her face illuminated by the faint moonlight. She was disheveled, her eyes wild, and in her hand she held a kitchen knife. "You're not taking anything from me," she hissed. I stood gripping my cane. "You already lost, Evelyn. You just don't know it yet." She lunged at me, the knife glinting. I swung my cane with surprising strength, striking her hand and sending the knife clattering to the floor. She shrieked, grabbing my arm and shoving me toward the stairs. But before she could push me again, the front door burst open. Police officers swarmed in, shouting commands. Evelyn tried to run, but they tackled her to the ground, handcuffing her as she screamed curses at me. "You'll regret this, old woman," she yelled as they dragged her out. I stood trembling, clutching my cane, but I had never felt stronger. Liam ran inside moments later, wrapping his arms around me. "You're safe, Grandma. It's over." But deep down I knew it wasn't. Evelyn wasn't the type to give up easily. She had allies, plans, and a rage that burned hotter than ever. The police assured me this time she wouldn't escape. She was going straight to a high-security prison. But my instincts told me the storm wasn't over. And I was right. The next morning, as I sipped my tea, a letter slid under my front door. I froze, my hands shaking as I picked it up. In messy handwriting it read, "This isn't the end. I'll finish what I started. Watch your back. E." I crumpled the letter in my hand, my heart racing. The nightmare was far from over. What new horrors does Evelyn have planned? Will she strike again from the shadows? Or will I be forced to end this once and for all? Stay with me because the battle is only growing fiercer. Like, comment, and subscribe, because the next chapter will show just how far a grandmother can go when her life is on the line. The letter burned in my hand long after I had read it. Evelyn's words were like poison, a reminder that even behind bars or on the run, her hatred was relentless. I locked every door, checked every window, but paranoia gnawed at me. Every rustle outside, every creak of the house made my heart race. I knew she would strike again, and soon. That evening, Liam sat across from me at the kitchen table, his face pale. "Grandma, maybe you should leave town. Stay somewhere safe until she's caught." I shook my head. "No, Liam. If I run, she wins. This is my home. This is where I make my stand." He tried to argue, but I cut him off with a firm voice. "Your mother believes I'm weak, but she forgets. Life has made me strong. Stronger than she can ever imagine." Over the next few days, I took steps to protect myself. I installed more cameras, reinforced the locks, and kept the panic button with me at all times. I even had my lawyer arrange for a security team to patrol the property discreetly. But the fear lingered like a shadow that never left. One night, as I sat reading in the living room, the lights flickered. A storm raged outside, wind howling against the windows. Liam had gone to stay with a friend to keep him out of danger, leaving me alone in the house. The perfect time, I realized, for Evelyn to make her move. And she did. I heard it first, a faint tapping on the window, then the unmistakable sound of glass cracking. I turned slowly, my heart pounding, and saw a silhouette slipping through the broken window. Rain poured in behind her, soaking the floor. Evelyn stepped into the light, her hair matted, her eyes wild with rage. "Miss me, Margaret," she hissed, her voice low and dangerous. I stood, gripping my cane tightly. "You're insane, Evelyn. You won't win." She laughed bitterly. "Win? This isn't about winning anymore. This is about making you suffer." Lightning flashed, illuminating the knife in her hand. She lunged, and I barely dodged, my cane swinging wildly to block her attack. The clash was chaotic. Me, an old woman with nothing but a cane and my will to live, and her, a predator fueled by hatred. I stumbled, hitting the floor hard, but I didn't let go of my cane. Evelyn raised the knife again, screaming, "Say goodbye, Margaret." At that exact moment, the front door slammed open. 2 security guards rushed in, tackling her to the ground. She kicked and screamed, clawing like a wild animal, but they restrained her, forcing the knife from her hand. "Stay down, lady," one guard shouted as they pinned her. I struggled to my feet, my heart racing, and stared down at her. "You've lost, Evelyn. This ends now." She glared up at me, her face twisted with hatred. "You think this ends with me? You think prison will stop me? There are others who want what you have. This isn't over." The guards dragged her out into the storm as she screamed, "You'll regret this, old woman. You'll regret it." The police arrived moments later, confirming she would be sent to a maximum security prison with no chance of escape. But even as they reassured me, I couldn't shake the feeling that her words were true. Days passed, and life began to settle. Liam returned, relieved that his mother had been caught again. We tried to return to some sense of normalcy, but the fear never fully left me. I kept the letter as a reminder, never to let my guard down. Then, one afternoon, my lawyer came to visit with an envelope in hand. "Mrs. Cole," he said, "it's time we finalize your will. After everything, I think you should reconsider who inherits your estate." He nodded. "You're right. Liam will inherit everything. Evelyn and Thomas are to be removed entirely." The lawyer smiled. "Wise choice." But as I signed the papers, a chill ran down my spine. It was too quiet, too still. That night, while I was getting ready for bed, a message flashed on my phone. It was an unknown number. I opened it and my heart stopped. A photo of me, taken through the window just minutes ago, appeared on the screen. Underneath, the words, "Did you really think I'd let prison stop me?" My breath caught. If she was back already, then the nightmare was far from over. How far will Evelyn go to finish what she started? And how far will I go to protect myself and those I love? The storm is building again. Stay with me because what's coming next will leave you breathless. Like, comment, and subscribe because the next chapter will take you deeper into the fight for my life. The photo on my phone chilled me to the core. It was recent. I could see the exact curtains I had just drawn behind me. Evelyn wasn't just out there, she was close. My hands trembled, but I refused to let fear paralyze me. If she wanted to play this game, I would play smarter. I immediately called the police, but when they arrived, there was no sign of her. No footprints in the mud, no camera footage showing her face. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. The officers assured me they would increase patrols, but I could see it in their eyes. They were starting to think I was imagining things. Liam, however, believed me. "Grandma, she's not going to stop. She's obsessed," he said, his voice shaking. "I know," I whispered. "That's why we're going to end this. Once and for all." The next day, I visited my lawyer again and made a drastic decision. I transferred my estate into a trust under Liam's name, effective immediately. That way, even if something happened to me, Evelyn would gain nothing. The lawyer nodded approvingly but warned, "This might provoke her even more." "I'm counting on it," I said. That night I set my own trap. With the help of the police, we staged the house to look unprotected, as if I was alone and vulnerable. In reality, officers were stationed in unmarked vehicles nearby, and hidden cameras covered every inch of the property. I sat in my chair by the fireplace, pretending to read, my cane at my side and a small panic device in my hand. Hours passed. The wind howled outside. Then, just past midnight, a faint scratching at the back door made my heart race. I stayed perfectly still, my eyes fixed on the dark hallway. The door creaked open. A shadow slipped in, Evelyn wearing black from head to toe, her face partially covered. In her hand, she carried a crowbar. She moved silently, scanning the room, her eyes gleaming with hatred. I waited until she stepped closer, until I could see the madness in her expression. "You should have stayed gone," I said calmly, startling her. She froze, her eyes widening. "You knew I was coming." "Yes," I said, my voice cold as steel. "Because I know you, Evelyn. You can't stand losing." She snarled, raising the crowbar. "I'm taking back what's mine." Before she could swing, floodlights outside blazed to life. Officers stormed in, shouting commands. Evelyn spun around, trying to run, but she was surrounded. She dropped the crowbar, screaming as they tackled her to the ground. "You set me up," she shrieked as they cuffed her. "No," I said, stepping closer. "You set yourself up. You couldn't stop your own hatred." As they dragged her out, she spat one final threat. "This isn't over, Margaret. Even if they lock me away forever, I'll find a way to destroy you." The police took her away, this time to a prison with no possibility of escape. The officers assured me she would never see the light of day outside those walls. Still, her words lingered in my mind like an echo. In the following weeks, life began to slowly return to normal. Liam and I spent time together, rebuilding what had been broken by years of manipulation. The house no longer felt like a cage. It felt like a fortress of survival. But one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I found something wedged in the mailbox. A single envelope. No return address. Inside was a photo of Evelyn behind prison bars, smiling. On the back, scribbled in red ink, were the words, "You can't cage hate forever." My heart pounded, but this time I didn't feel fear. I felt resolve. If Evelyn wanted to keep this war alive, then I would outlast her. Because I was not just surviving, I was fighting. And I wasn't finished yet. Will Evelyn find a way to reach me again? Or will I finally turn the tables in a way she can never recover from? The next chapter will reveal just how far I'll go to protect everything I love. Don't miss what's coming. Like, comment, and subscribe, because the next chapter will show you a grandmother who refuses to bow to fear. Days passed, then weeks, yet the memory of Evelyn's threats lingered like a dark cloud. The photo of her smiling behind prison bars sat on my table as a constant reminder. She was waiting, plotting, biding her time. But I was no longer the same Margaret who trembled at the top of those stairs. I was sharper now, ready to strike back before she could. I took steps Evelyn never expected. I hired a private security firm, installed reinforced gates, and ensured that every angle of my home was under surveillance. My lawyer, Mr. Harlan, arranged for additional legal protections, placing my assets far out of her reach. She could rot in prison and watch her world crumble while mine stood strong. One evening, Liam and I sat on the porch as the sun set. He sipped his soda nervously and asked, "Grandma, what if she gets out again? What if she finds someone to hurt us?" I placed my hand over his. "Liam, evil feeds on fear. But I won't let her scare me anymore. If she comes again, we'll be ready." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Static filled the line, followed by a whisper I would know anywhere. "Evelyn, you think cameras and guards will stop me? You're an old woman hiding behind walls. I'm already closer than you think." My chest tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "Enjoy your cell, Evelyn. It's the only home you'll ever have." She laughed, a chilling sound. "You're wrong. I have friends on the outside. People who owe me. You won't see me coming." The line went dead. I immediately called the prison, demanding answers. They claimed Evelyn hadn't had access to a phone, but I knew better. She had her ways. The police increased their patrols again, but tension grew in the air like an approaching storm. 2 nights later, the storm broke. It started with the power going out. Every light in the house died at once. My backup generator kicked in, but the cameras were down. I grabbed my cane and moved cautiously through the darkened halls. Liam was upstairs, and I yelled for him to stay in his room. A crash echoed from the kitchen. My heart pounded as I gripped my panic button. I stepped closer, the creak of the floorboards loud in my ears. Suddenly, a shadow darted past me. My breath caught. Then a voice. Not Evelyn's, but a man's. "Where is she? Where's the old woman?" He wasn't alone. I heard 2 sets of footsteps. Hired men, Evelyn's friends. They were tearing through my house, searching for me. I moved silently, slipping into a side room and pressing the alarm. The sirens blared, red lights flashing through the windows. The intruders cursed and ran toward the back door. I stepped into the hallway, blocking their path with my cane raised. "You picked the wrong house," I said, my voice trembling but firm. One man lunged at me, but before he could reach me, floodlights erupted outside. Police stormed in, shouting commands. The intruders were caught in seconds, pinned to the ground. One of them screamed. She said this would be easy. As they dragged them away, I asked, "Who sent you?" The man sneered. "Evelyn." The police assured me these men would lead to charges that would bury Evelyn for good. Still, my heart raced. She was pulling strings from behind bars, and I needed to cut those strings permanently. The next morning, I met with Mr. Harlan. "We have to expose everything," I told him. Every crime she's committed, every person she's manipulated. I want her stripped of any power she has left. He nodded. Then it's time to go public. We prepared a case so strong that the media couldn't ignore it. News stations picked up the story. Elderly woman survives multiple murder attempts by daughter-in-law. Public outrage grew. Evelyn became infamous, her reputation destroyed. But just when I thought I was finally safe, I received one last letter in the mail. No return address. Inside, only one sentence written in bold red ink. See you soon, Margaret. My hands trembled as I read it. She wasn't done. Not yet. How will Evelyn strike from the shadows this time? And how far will I go to end this war once and for all? Stay with me because in the next chapter the final battle begins. Like, comment and subscribe because the fight for my life is reaching its climax. The letter haunted me through the night. See you soon, Margaret. It wasn't just a threat, it was a promise. I hardly slept, my ears straining at every sound, my eyes darting to every shadow. Evelyn was planning something final, and I had to be ready. The next morning I met with Detective Harris, the officer who had been handling my case. She's escalating, I told him, sliding the letter across his desk. He examined it, his brow furrowing. We've tightened security at the prison, but she's still reaching out. Someone is smuggling these messages for her. We'll trace it, but in the meantime you need to stay somewhere safe. I shook my head. No, she wants me scared. I won't give her that satisfaction. If she's coming, I'll be ready. Harris sighed but agreed to place plainclothes officers around my property. He also gave me a direct line to his phone. If anything happens, call me. No questions asked. Back home I fortified my defenses. I asked Liam to stay with a friend again. He argued, but I insisted. I need you safe, Liam. That's how you can help me. He reluctantly agreed, promising to call me every hour. For 2 nights nothing happened. I began to wonder if the letter had been a bluff. But on the 3rd night, as a heavy rainstorm pounded against the windows, I felt it. The shift in the air, the prickling on the back of my neck. Then the lights flickered and died. My generator failed to start this time. Silence filled the house, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. I moved slowly, my cane tapping the floor as I crept through the hall. The emergency flashlight cast long, eerie shadows on the walls. That's when I heard it. A faint creak from upstairs. She was here. I tightened my grip on the cane and climbed the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. At the top the hallway was pitch black. I could barely see, but I heard her voice, low and venomous. You should have signed everything over, Margaret. You should have died quietly. I turned toward the sound, my heart pounding. Evelyn, you've already lost. She laughed, the sound sharp and chilling. Lost? No, Margaret. Tonight I win. Lightning flashed, and for a brief second I saw her, standing at the end of the hallway, soaking wet, her hair plastered to her face, eyes burning with madness. She lunged at me, and we collided, falling hard against the floor. My cane clattered away as she pinned me down, a knife glinting in her hand. You ruined my life, she screamed, raising the blade. I grabbed her wrist with both hands, struggling with every ounce of strength left in me. No, Evelyn. You ruined yourself. The struggle was fierce, but I managed to twist her arm. The knife dropped, skidding across the floor. We both scrambled for it, but before either of us could reach it, the hallway exploded with light. Freeze! Detective Harris and his officers stormed in, guns drawn. They tackled Evelyn to the ground as she screamed and thrashed. You'll never be safe. Never! She howled as they dragged her down the stairs. I sat trembling, clutching my chest as Harris helped me up. She's done, Margaret, he said firmly. This time there's no coming back for her. They took her away in cuffs, her screams echoing through the night. I watched from the doorway, my heart pounding with both fear and relief. Later, Harris assured me Evelyn would be placed in solitary confinement, under the highest security possible. She won't be able to reach you again, he promised. But as I sat alone in my living room, listening to the rain, I knew it wasn't truly over. Not yet. Evelyn's hatred wasn't something that could be caged. It would linger, waiting for any crack to escape through. And then, just as I was beginning to relax, I saw it. On the window, written in the condensation from the storm, were the words, "One more night, Margaret." My blood ran cold. Was this the final warning? Or the beginning of the end? The last chapter will reveal who truly survives this deadly game. Stay with me. Next chapter is where everything ends. Like, comment, and subscribe because the finale will leave you breathless. The message on the window, "One more night, Margaret," sent chills down my spine. The police had taken Evelyn away hours ago, yet here were her words, taunting me, promising that this wasn't over. My hands trembled as I touched the glass. The letters were fresh, written from the outside, smearing under my fingertips. She had been here. I grabbed my phone and called Detective Harris. "She's still out there," I said, my voice barely steady. "She's not in custody like you think." Within minutes, officers swarmed my property, but again there was no sign of her. No footprints, no security footage showing how she got so close. It was as if she was a ghost. Harris put extra units on patrol, but I could see the worry in his eyes. "Stay inside, lock everything. Tonight we end this." I didn't sleep. I sat in my chair, my cane within reach, a small revolver, Robert's old gun, hidden in the folds of my robe. I had never fired it in my life, but tonight might be the night I did. The hours crawled by. At 2 a.m., the storm returned, wind howling, rain lashing against the house. And then I heard it, a faint tapping on the upstairs window. Slowly I climbed the stairs, every step filled with dread. When I reached the landing, I saw her. Evelyn stood outside the glass, soaked, her eyes burning with madness. She smashed the window with a single swing of her crowbar and crawled through, shards cutting her skin. Blood streaked her face, but she didn't care. She was beyond reason. "This ends tonight," she screamed, charging at me. I backed away, my hand clutching Robert's gun. "Stop, Evelyn. Don't do this." She laughed, a cold, broken sound. "You won't shoot me. You're too soft." She lunged, and instinct took over. Pulled the trigger. The gun roared, the sound deafening in the hall. Evelyn stumbled, clutching her shoulder, but even wounded, she kept coming. I fired again, and she collapsed to the floor, the crowbar slipping from her grasp. I stood frozen, the gun shaking in my hand, as police lights flashed outside. Harris and his men burst in moments later, pulling me away as they restrained Evelyn, who was still conscious but barely. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with venom. "You think you've won. You'll never be free of me." I stared back at her, my voice cold as ice. "You're wrong, Evelyn. This ends now." They took her away for the last time. This time there was no escape, no allies, no second chances. Evelyn was sentenced to life without parole in a high-security prison, under constant surveillance. Her reign of terror was finally over. Weeks later, I stood on my porch, the sun warming my face. Liam joined me, smiling nervously. "It's finally over, Grandma." I nodded, though part of me knew I would always carry the scars. "Yes, Liam. It's over. We survived." I finalized my will, leaving everything to Liam, the only one who had stood by me when the world turned dark. I sold the house where so much pain had happened, choosing to live somewhere new, somewhere Evelyn's shadow could never reach me again. As I locked the door to my old home one last time, I whispered to myself, "Robert, I kept our legacy safe. She didn't win." The nightmare had ended, but the lesson remained. Trust is fragile, and greed can turn blood into poison. Yet even in the darkest battles, strength can rise from the most unexpected places. I walked away free at last. Broken heart, this was my story. A fight for survival, for justice, and for peace. Fire if you felt every twist, every heartbeat, and every moment of suspense. Like, comment, and subscribe. Your support keeps stories like this alive, and reminds us all that no matter how dark it gets, strength and courage will always win.